Now with the replacements in this UA, here is where, particularly when you look at a class like the Ranger, we've been able to give alternatives that people have been hungry for. We have gotten feedback for a while that people would like an alternative to Favorite Enemy in the form it had in the Player's Handbook, an alternative to Natural Explorer, and some of the other features. And so here we've offered up some alternatives. They are really saucy.
They are very good, I will have to say. Especially like if you're playing a Horizon Walker, where it's sometimes, like the Favorite Enemy still made perfect sense, but like if you're a Horizon Walker, you go through a lot of terrain.
Yes, yeah.
Maybe some terrain that isn't listed, right?
Yeah.
But Hunter's Mark without concentration.
Yep.
And without it's not even a bonus action, right?
Well, we don't mess with how you cast the spell.
Yeah, that's right. So Hunter's Mark, you can just do it. You don't need spell components. It doesn't take a spell slot. And this is remarkable because this kind of frees you up to do smites now, which Rangers have as well, which I thought was very clever.
So yes, one of the enhancements we do in this article is adding spells to certain classes' spell lists. Yeah. We'll see what people think of these additions, and we'll see if they make it into a publication. Again, this is a thing on the buffet that a group has to decide if they're going to turn on or not. These are not sort of errata to the Player's Handbook.
Right.
This would be.
This is UA.
This is UA.
A test session.
And no, but even if it again makes it into a publication.
Right.
This is not.
Yeah.
This is not like an add-on to the PH. This is. Here's an option that your group may or may not turn on. Now, I am really fond of what we've done for the Ranger. Like all UA material when we do class design, we have not optimized it for multi-classing. So I should say that there is a good chance that Deft Explorer and Favored Foe, if they make it to our next level of development, there will be some tweaking to make it so that they are not too juicy of an option for everyone to just dip into Ranger for one level.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that immediately when I saw Hunter's Mark, what didn't require concentration, I'm like, can I just do Variant Human and get Hex? And now layer Hex on top of Hunter's Mark? I'm like, no, because just because it doesn't require concentration doesn't make it not a concentration spell. And that's how I was like, justifying it in my brain. Like, I don't know.
No, actually, the game doesn't have a concept of a concentration spell as an abstraction.
Okay. So it doesn't.
No, the game is like you're either concentrating on a spell or you're not.
Okay. That's interesting because Hex on top of Hunter's Mark is mean.
But again,
not optimized for multi.
It's not optimized for multi-classing, and so the not having to concentrate. That is an example of something that is likely to change in the next phase of development.
Right.
We often, and this is not only true for this Unearthed Arcana, but also for our subclasses, we will often put things out that are more potent than we would end up publishing. I've mentioned before, it is actually far easier for us to produce something that is more powerful than we want, do people like the concept, and simply rein in the power, rather than producing something that's super underpowered. And because often to address that, you don't just fiddle with the numbers, you often have to come up with new design, which then has to go back into playtesting. So in a way, it's actually more efficient for us to present something that's overpowered and then just have to turn some of the numbers down. Now, I also want to talk about the primal beasts for the Beastmaster.
Oh, I love how you've done this, because this is something you and I have talked before. You have now started to include the stats for creatures within the classes themselves, and this is a great example of that. Not only that, but you also provided kind of the best ones, right? Like everyone chooses an owl, right? Like because you can do flyby and stuff like this. But yeah, so you provided these awesome choices for the Beastmaster.
So part of the philosophy behind what we did with the Beastmaster companions is I did not want us, with this Unearthed Arcana, to go too deeply into subclasses. Part of that is because that would have been a road that would have no end, because the game has many, many subclasses, and it really would have gone far beyond the point of this UA, which was its main goal is provide some cool options for base classes. That said, I did want us to give the Beastmaster Ranger something, because we know in survey after survey, this is the subclass where people are most hungry for some new options. And so I had this aha moment, because I was racking my brain, how can I give people what they want without actually changing what's in the player's handbook? And I realized, well, we actually do it through the creature. Because it's funny, technically speaking, what's in this UA is not a change to the Beastmaster at all. These are simply 2 additional monster stat blocks that the Ranger is free to partner with as a part of their companion feature. And they are designed to work with everything in the Beastmaster subclass as written. I mean, that was one of the other design goals I gave to myself and to Dan Dillon and Ben Petrosor is whatever we design, again, unless we make an explicit exception, has to work with the player's handbook. A person needs to be able to open the PH, look at one of these options, and have the 2 seamlessly locked together. So people might wonder, when they look at, say, these new Beastmaster companions, and then compare them to, say, the Battlesmith's Steel Defender or the recent Wildfire Spirit, they'll notice that some of the scaling that is in those other creatures is not in these new Beastmaster companion creatures. The reason for that is the scaling is in the Beastmaster. And these creatures are designed, again, to work seamlessly with the Beastmaster feature. You still use every word in it, pair it to these stat blocks, and you're good to go. I wouldn't be surprised if people give a thumb up to these creatures, and I hope they do, because I think they're a lot of fun. I wouldn't be surprised if we ended up designing another creature or 2 to give Rangers a few more options. I would also love to explore doing this kind of thing for other places in the game where you summon things or befriend things, because it allows us to design exactly the thing that the person needs. Anytime we throw the door wide open, and I think you and I have talked about this before, to just, hey, go loot the monster manual. First off, almost all of that's designed just for the Dungeon Master.
Exactly.
So it is always risky when we do that. And it also means we end up having to be way more conservative in our design than we tend to be. Like the Beastmaster is very conservative because we're so generous on just, as long as you meet this CR specification, go loot all of our monster books. If we bring that, basically if those doors get closed, we can then actually be way more generous because we know exactly what we're giving you. What I don't know is if we've talked about the fact that this approach was actually in the D&D Next playtest. This was actually how we originally wanted pet classes and also the Druid's Wild Shape to work. Yes. There was at least one draft of the Druid where the beast stat blocks were in the class and they were customized for the Druid. At the time, it was too alien to people who were used to being able to go to the monster book and get it. And between that point and the book's publication, there wasn't time for us to get it right. So we reverted to the classic way of doing it because it's like, well, it has been the way D&D has done it for decades. We will, and that, often in playtesting, if there's not time to make the new thing work, you then have to revert to the old thing works.
Yeah.
So what's funny is this has actually been an approach I have wanted to be in the game since before 5th edition even came out. And now we've had time to get people used to it and to also do a better job of showing the advantages of it. Because anytime you just change something in a game, the audience needs time to warm up to it, to see, oh, I get it, that I'm getting something cool by going down this new path. And really this entire UA is about providing some new paths that I hope people, when they start exploring, will see, oh, this is really neat. I'm seeing my character in a way I've never seen them before.
Yes. I've actually experienced this multiple times, especially with the ranger. Originally, my own character started as a ranger, and this feels like very much back to where he started, all those years ago. But things I really liked, incorporating a little bit of the Battlemaster, those abilities with fighters. So now that you have you can actually get a bonus to deception, I believe, and so, you can be a very clever fighter now. Yeah. And now I can play this fighter that isn't just muscle and swords and everything else. I feel like there's more leadway to customize the fighter a little bit.
That is an example of us leaning more into what's actually in the write-up of the Battlemaster in the Player's Handbook, where we actually talk about the Battlemaster as not just a person of brawn, but also a person who has gone through rigorous training. And so the flavor text is all there for it, but when you get to the maneuvers in the Player's Handbook, it's all about combat. And we wanted to show that battle masters and anyone else who has access to maneuvers can, as a part of their training as a warrior, have refined other aspects of themselves. Yeah. I mean, and people who have been in militaries in our own world know this to be true. Right. I mean, many people, especially who've gone through officers training, are extremely well spoken. And have all sorts of training that has nothing to do with just combat. And they're also great soldiers, but there's more. And so we wanted in these options to show, and there's more. Right. Maneuvers are also so fun and so versatile that we wanted to give all fighters the option of dipping into them, which is why we offer up this new fighting style, superior technique, that allows any fighter, if this option's turned on in their campaign, to snag a maneuver. Anyone can already do that in the Player's Handbook using the Martial Adept feat.
Yeah, we do the feat, but now this is
and not every group uses feats.
That's also true.
So also some of the options in this document are about giving people some of the versatility that feats provide without having to use feats. Because we know that a sort of narrow majority of groups don't actually use feats. And so basically communicating to people, well, hey, all the versatility you want is right there in the feat system. That isn't actually a satisfying path for some groups because some groups don't want to interact with the feat system. This is another way for a group to get some of that versatility without having to dip into feats and also without having to multi-class, because there are also many people who love just playing a single class character.